Top story this week, Syria update. And Andy, you don't really think of murderous dictators as human beings, and that's generally for a pretty good reason, because they tend to lack any of the behavioural qualities that qualify you for humanity. Things like conscience, mercy and kindness are not high on dictators' personality profiles. But, you don't want to humanise them. But sometimes it is worth it when that humanising turns them out to be not so much intimidating monsters, but rather pathetic little dweebs who in another life will be having their lunch money taken from them and hung from coat hooks by the back of their underpants. Hitler, for instance, was rumoured to only have one testicle, of course, which does help in a way to slightly demystify him, even if it also makes you slightly concerned about what he would have been capable of doing with the power of both testicles intact. So Assad of Syria has been very busy over the last 12 months doing some intensive interior decorating of his own country in the form of bombing his own cities and murdering his own people. He's a flawed human being, Andy. Yeah. He really puts the cock into that man is a total cock. But we now have quite a lot more personal information about him than we did this time last week, because the Guardian newspaper in London has published more than 3,000 documents that Syrian opposition claims are emails downloaded from private accounts belonging to Assad and his wife. It's basically a glimpse into the internet history of a tyrant and a Mrs. Tyrant. And you can't help but juxtapose what they were doing online with what they were doing in the real world. For instance, in February, when the siege of Homs was taking place and Syrian citizens were being killed in the streets, Mrs. Assad was apparently browsing the internet for luxury shoes and writing to her friends about 6-inch high heels that cost more than $5,000. That's a little let them eat cakey, Andy.
Just a touch.
That's a little let them wear 3-inch heels. It'll be easier for them to run away from tank bombardments they're about to receive. Also, she is really screwing up the customer recommendations for other people who buy those shoes, Andy. If you like these 6-inch high heels, you may also like firing on unarmed groups of civilians. Oh, I'm not sure about that, but I do love those shoes, so maybe I'll give it a go. Customers who bought these shoes also tortured political dissidents for information. Well, that does sound fun. It'll be much easier to do that in a flat-soled pump like this one.
Do you think there's a correlation between the height of her heels and the murderousness of her husband? Because didn't she always used to wear pumps in the old days? Just flat-soled pumps.
Or before he just started unloading tanks on people.
Yeah, and then the higher her heels got.
So are you appealing for Mrs. Assad to...
Yeah, all I know
for the love of God, lower your heel?
All I know is that Mrs. Pol Pot was a professional stilt walker.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. Also in February, at the outset of the assaults on Homs, Assad sent Mrs. Assad the lyrics of a song by the country star Blake Shelton. Are you... I'm not aware of Blake Shelton's oeuvre. He's quite a big star here, isn't he?
He is a big star, yes. Oh, if you like country music.
Yeah, and does he wear massive hats?
Bad country music. He's no stranger to the massive hat.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I mean, he'll not wear a hat as well, but he will also wear a hat.
Is that an acoustic thing with country singers?
What?
The massive hat. Does it, keep the vocal tonature angled downwards to get a more resonant timbre?
But it's more than just angling it downwards. It also projects it skywards because of the rim of the brim towards God in heaven.
Yeah.
So that he can hear...
So he can fry his chicken.
Some of the worst sounds that his creations have ever created.
So anyway, I went online to find some of Blake Shelton's songs and played them backwards to see what coded messages they contain that maybe Assad had been influenced by. And his 2009 hit, Hillbilly Bone, a duet with Trace Adkins, John, the 21st century's Wilfred Owen, and of course the creator, overlord behind the unofficial US national anthem, Honky Tonk Badonkadonk. That song, Hillbilly Bone, contains this lyric: "We all got a hillbilly bone down deep inside. No matter where you're from, you just can't hide it. When the band starts banging and the fiddle soars, you can't help but hollering, yee-haw." When you see them pretty little country queens, man, you got to admit that it's in them jeans. Ain't nothing wrong just getting on your hillbilly bone. Now, very moving lyrics as they are, but played backwards in Arabic, what it says is, show no mercy to those who would overthrow you, but visit upon them devastation from the sky and from the ground, as a hail of holy pain rains upon their infidel heads, until the streets run crimson with the blood of the unfaithful, and the echoes of your vengeance reverberate through the corridors of the Syrian soul, such that none shall dare again raise hand or voice against your powerhead for all eternity. Yeehaw! Now this, another song, Old Red, one of Shelton's breakthrough hits from about 10 years ago, cover version. Now Old Red, he's the damnedest dog that I've ever seen, got a nose that can smell a two-day trail, he's a four-leg tracking machine. If you translate that into semaphore but use the wrong flags, it says, suck my big ones, international community, and suck them hard. What are you going to do? Put one hand on your hip and whack your index finger on the other hand in an admonitory fashion? Good luck with that, girlfriend. If you need me, I'll be on the phone to Russia reminding them how much money I pay them every year for their fireworks. Toodle pip. And, of course, Shelton's 2011 solo hit, Honey Bee. If you record it onto a wax cylinder and then melt the wax cylinder and pour the molten wax into cold water, it solidifies into the shape of a Kalashnikov pointing at a child. So I guess we can see, the influence that Blake Shelton has had on the oppression of ordinary Syrian people.
Well, there's no question that's true.
Yeah. And what has Shelton got to say about that?
Well, he's been ominously quiet about it, hasn't he?
Quiet. As has Garth Brooks. Is he still alive?
In fact, Blake Shelton and the city of Damascus have never been seen in the same place, Andy. Is that coincidence? Assad's email was reportedly sam at al-Shaba, which, is pretty unspectacular email address. I was hoping it might be bigguns22 at syria.net or Bashar al-Assad 3 at mac.com, just because he hadn't moved quite quickly enough to get his name first. And the emails do offer a great window into his state of mind. At one point, he's found to be swapping amusing links to videos with his aides and his wife. One video is a YouTube clip featuring a reenactment of the Siege of Homs with a child's toy car and a pile of biscuits. That's like Pol Pot making a video reenacting the killing fields with Rice Krispies for skulls. It's possible, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a particularly good idea to do it. Assad linked to the video in an email to his media advisor saying, check out this video on YouTube, in an email. She replied, this is a quote, ha 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 ha, OMG, 3 exclamation marks, this is amazing. They're high school girls, Andy. High school girls with somehow an even worse grasp of humanity. And in another video, Assad linked his wife to a clip from America's Got Talent, in which an illusionist appears to saw his assistant in half. I mean, maybe that was a metaphor for what he was planning on doing to the opposition in Syria, Andy. Or maybe he just thought it was truly incredible piece of magic, and it was making him rethink his relationships with the West. Dear sweetheart, watch this clip, my wife. It turns out that America really does have talent. We may have misjudged the great Satan. What sorcery is this that can saw a person in half and then put them back together? I'm going to Google Israel's Got Talent now. If it turns out that a Jew can juggle 14 bagels to Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, then I may have to seriously rethink my anti-Semitism. Anyway, hope you're having a good day. Lots of love, Bash.
Have you got... Paul, have you got the Celine Dion track there? Because I've got 14 bagels here. And I'm feeling confident.
Let me check.
John, so he watched this on YouTube of the kid being sawn in half.
Yes.
Which bit of that did he like best? Did he like... Was it just the sawing in half?
It was the middle bit. It was the middle bit he liked. He found the start took too long, and the ending he just found inexplicable.
He just didn't want the kid put back together.
It was the
again.
middle bit.
Yeah, it was the
middle bit he thought was awesome.
Slaughtering of the child. That's really what he goes for.
It was what looked like an entertaining snuff movie with a woman in a bikini.
Or maybe that's what he's going to do. Maybe that, this is all some elaborate setup. And then he's going to suddenly go abracadabra and everyone in Homs is going to be fine. And Syrian society is going to be put back together in perfect harmony just as it was before.
Maybe that's it. This is just the this is the misdirect.
Yeah, he's like the David Copperfield of Arabic politics.
Get ready for the prestige, UN. But perhaps the motherload of information, as you alluded to, came from his iTunes account, specifically what purchases of music he'd been making. And for a start, It's frankly incredible that he actually paid for the downloaded music. What a strange point to start suddenly taking an interest in international law, Andy. He has absolutely no respect for human life, but he will not mess with iTunes terms and conditions.
Do you think has he read all 63 pages of it?
I think it's every chance he has. We all have a line we will not cross. Yes, I've ordered the murder of innocent civilians, but I personally am not comfortable with what is, to all intents and purposes, stealing from Lionel Richie. It's...
Let Carrie Underwood eat her rightful bread.
It's the songs that he's been buying themselves that are incredible. When you think of a dictator's music taste, you probably go with either Metallica or some other death metal, or you go with opera. You know, for your classic hairless cat-stroking dictator, Hitler, of course, big Wagner fan. Colonel Gaddafi, as we know, was no stranger to the musical charms of Nelly Furtado, but he was only human. But Assad may have really taken the musical biscuit here. There's no point in guessing, buglers, what Assad downloaded, because you'll never get it right. The press has been describing his musical taste as eclectic, and I guess it is eclectic for a 12-year-old girl. Because his collection of music records may be even worse than his records in human rights. Try this for size. Right Said Fred. That's right, Andy. Yeah. Right Said Fred. The two men who became famous for their I'm Too Sexy song, and who may have been the gayest music artists of all time. But it wasn't even the I'm Too Sexy single that he bought. It was their less popular Don't Talk, Just Kiss song.
Well, there's an explanation for this, John, because it came down to a linguistic confusion. Because kiss is in fact the Syrian word for be brutally oppressed.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Direct message.
Don't talk, just be brutally oppressed.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to touch a catchy. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, try these.
I don't know what Assad's record on gay rights is. I'm imagining that were Right Said Fred to tour Syria, they might not get the warmest official reception.
I don't want to judge his book by its violently oppressive cover, Andy, but I'm guessing he's not particularly progressive in his views on equal rights in that department.
I met the Fairbrass brothers recently.
Did you?
Yeah.
How?
It's impossible. It's impossible to go 30 seconds of conversation with them without sexual innuendo dominating.
They're phenomenal. They know what they do. They know what they do well, and they do it all the time. And I admire that.
They also hate Shias, so it's ironic.
The Assad also added to his extensive musical collection, ordering Hurt by Leona Lewis, Look at Me Now by Chris Brown, the R&B musician and wife batterer, featuring Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes, and on New Year's Eve he bought A Tribute to Cliff Richard. I think that last one might actually get him shot in the street, Andy. The Syrian people can only take so much humiliation before they'll just rise up and tear his administration to pieces.
Actually, could that be the final straw that gets the international community to fully commit to toppling Assad?
I think it might be. Because what's clear from the last 12 months in the news is that none of this music has succeeded in calming him down. And
not even mistletoe and wine.
Not even mistletoe and wine.
Really?
That's usually the great pacifier. Yeah. Now, perhaps my favourite purchase, Andy, on the 5th of February, just before Valentine's Day, Assad sent his wife an iTunes file of who else but Blake Shelton, the US country star, singing God Gave Me You. And I guess that makes sense in a way, because he's clearly a fan of atrocities, Assad, and that song is a musical human rights abuse. It also shows that he has a sensitive side, because the lyrics to the song show a tortured soul just a day before the shelling of Homs began. I've been a walking heartache. I've made a mess of me. The person that I've been lately ain't who I want to be. But you stay right here beside me. Watch as the storm goes through. Andy, this is just the final evidence to add to your evidence that Blake Shelton should be immediately arrested and taken to The Hague. Because that song is clearly sending a message appealing to dictators to violently clamp down on their people. And let me just give you a blast of it, Andy.
I've made a mess of me, the person that I've been lately.
Oh, yeah.
Who I want to be, but you stay here right beside me.
Take me home.
Watch as the storm blows through.
He's human, Andy.
Oh, mama.
If you cut him, Andy, do you not bleed?
John, I think, we might not have found Assad's cut-off point, but we've found yours, because You've been prepared to sing pretty much any form of music on the Bugle. It turns out country is one step you're not prepared to take.
Well, let me just take this one step further, Andy. Because in January of this year, when he'd already done so many terrible things and was about to do so much more, he bought a number of songs by the inexplicably popular US dance group LMFAO, including their hit Sexy and I Know It. And there's a chilling message in that song for the international community, Andy, where LMFAO say, "This is how I roll. Animal print. Out of control. I got passion in my pants and I ain't afraid to show it. I'm sexy and I know it." Now, I know that Assad as a figure is a terrifying prospect with the full might of the Syrian army at his disposal. And I know that for people in Syria, in Homs and in Damascus, he's an intimidating presence to stand up to. But instead of picturing him like that, Andy, with an army of tanks and soldiers in front of him, just imagine him dancing around in his compound, in his underwear, when he thinks no one is around, to this song.
With a hairbrush as a microphone.
That's right. Just imagine Bashar Assad dancing around, nearly naked, to this song. It's just not as intimidating. He's an idiot, Andy. He's a complete idiot. I'm not gonna say that the fact that is the case makes anything better, but it is a fact.
Oh dear, I'm not sure. Stop. This is the way I roll. Clearly, he's referring to his tanks.
Yeah, exactly.
And look at that body. I think that's just too soon.
Andy, what I'm saying is, just imagine this beat just thudding through a ceiling in the palace in Damascus. And imagine his wife banging on the ceiling and shouting at him as the music stops, "Bashar, turn that shit off!" And imagine there being a pause. And then imagine this again.
I'm sexy and I know it.
All I'm saying is, yes, he's frightening. Yes, he's a terrible person. But he's also a f***ing moron, Andy.
And also, to be fair, LMFAO does stand for the League of Muslims for Authoritarian Oppressors. So, He also downloaded a song by a New York group called the Cover Girls from the late 1980s called We Can't Go Wrong. Mm-hmm. I do hope he's aware that citing the lyrics of late 80s New York urban girl groups is not considered a legal exculpation in the International Criminal Court. And as you said, Look at Me Now by Chris Brown, featuring Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes.
Yes.
And it's great, I'm sure you'd agree, John, to see Wayne and Rhymes back together, building up to another tilt at the Wimbledon men's doubles title. I mean, you've got to ask, have they got the all-round game to beat the Bryan brothers? I mean, I'd be confident they could take on Lodra and Ziminic, maybe not on grass, but certainly on a hard court. Lodra's got a lovely touch at the net, but I think Busta Rhymes' urban groove could knock him off his game, whilst Lil Wayne has such variety off his backhand that I think even an experienced doubles practitioner such as Ziminic could find it hard to cope. I'd go for Wayne and Rhymes in 3 sets, John.
OK.
If they do win, of course, they'll be the first hip-hop pairing to win a Grand Slam tennis title since Terminator X and Schoolie D teamed up to beat McEnroe and Fleming at the US Open in 1985.